I think I need to adjust that neon sign there. The problem is I keep moving my camera, and now it's up a little higher and it's shining. Yeah, so I got to adjust that. What's up, everybody? I think this week I'm going to talk about some of the haunted places I've worked in the past. Ooh. Welcome to Natty Ghosts. I am Matt, and this week I'm going to talk about some of the places I've worked. Actually, the only places I've worked that were haunted that I know of, anyway. I used to work at this pizza place in a strip mall, and the strip mall had a huge car lot, like brand new cars. The King's Auto Mall around the Cincinnati area, if you're familiar. They have literally a shopping mall, outdoor plaza shopping center that they're a part of. And the pizza place I worked at was in that plaza, in this little strip where there were a few little stores. And we were kind of flanked on either side by big stores. There was like a furniture store on the one side of us, and then there was the auto mall on the other side. And in that little strip where there was little businesses was our pizza place, I think a vitamin store, a health nutrition store, and there was also a burrito store. Now, I won't say the names of these places just because, but the pizza place is no longer there. I don't know if the burrito place is still there or not. It wasn't a Chipotle, but it is like their competition. And the pizza place is really around Dayton, Ohio, but we were the one farthest south of Dayton, and it was closer to Cincinnati, I think. But anyway, for some reason, we had the vent over the oven that cooked the pizzas, and it was so loud that you could barely hear anybody speak in the store. And it was like a jet was on top of the store on all the time. And at the end of the night, when we would turn that vent off, it was deafening, the silence that came from it. But because of that, I don't know if the things I heard were like white noise and I was just hearing things in the white noise, or what it was. But all the time I would hear people talking, and sometimes I would be the only one in the store. And it was really just a long, narrow, straight store. Kind of like a shotgun store. You know, you could fire a shotgun at the front and it would go through to the back. And there was nobody in there. There was nowhere for anybody to hide in there. So sometimes I would get done answering a phone or whatever, taking an order, and I would hear some, like, behind me. I would always hear people, like, talking, but it was almost like a whisper, but it was loud enough that I could hear it over that vent. Another time I got to work, I usually got to work at 11 p.m. because we stayed open until like 3 a.m. most nights, 4 a.m. on the weekends. And so I was a late night delivery guy. And one night I got to work at 11 p.m. and I noticed on the screen when I clocked in that there was 3 other people working at that time. My manager, my manager and 2 other delivery guys, and one of the delivery guys left with a delivery just as I got there. And the other 2 people I could see in the store. But while I was standing at the computer, out of the corner of my eye, I saw somebody walk across the store in the back over to where like our sink was to wash dishes. So I walked around the corner and looked, and nobody was there. And there was nowhere for them to go from that part of the store. So I told my boss about that, and he said it was weird, but I wasn't the only one who experienced things like that. And my boss was there all the time. He usually worked open to close. So from like 11 a.m. until 3 and 4 a.m., he worked almost every day. It's crazy. And I don't know if it was delusion because he got so little sleep or what, but he used to hear people talking all the time too, and every now and then he would see somebody walk out of the corner of his eyes. One night, we got a call from the burrito place, and after a certain time of night, like 8 or 9 p.m., we were the only 2 places open in that plaza, and the vitamin place had been robbed during the day, like prior to this. And so we kind of watched out for each other, like since we were the only ones with employees. And sometimes at the pizza place, my manager was the only one there if all of us were out on delivery. So they called one night, somebody from the burrito place, and said that they needed jumper cables. Their car was dead behind the store, behind the plaza. So I had jumper cables. I went and helped them get the car going. But while I was doing that, I overheard one of them talking about how they were concerned because of the vitamin place that had been robbed, and how the manager's code on the security system had been changed on the inside of the store, but nobody knew who did it. So they were like kind of concerned. And I was like, so, what's going on with this? Because I was concerned as well. And they started telling me, like, they think the store is haunted. And they started telling me all these different things that kind of lined up with what I was experiencing in my store. Like, not only did the manager's security code, get changed, but one morning, one of the staffers who was there that night, she told me she went to open the store at like 9 a.m. And the store didn't open until 11 a.m., but she was prepping things and all that. And she had locked the front door when she came in. She heard the chime over the door ring, ding dong, like, somebody came into the store. And she yelled out, good morning. And she heard somebody in the lobby yell, good morning. So she went out and said, how can I help you? But nobody was there. So she went and checked the door, and it was still locked. And she checked the rest of the store, and nobody was in there. So that was the pizza place. Now, years before that, my wife and I both had a job together at a place called Vianda. And this place I'll call out. I don't know why the difference is. I guess they're still in operation. I don't know. But the long story is, many years ago, there was a place called Berkeley Pharmaceuticals, and they made a product called Enzyte, which, if you're unfamiliar, is a natural male enhancement capsule or supplement.
Is Bob. Bob is doing well. Very well indeed. That's because not long ago, with just a quick phone call, Bob realized that he could have something better in his life. And what did he get? Why, a big boost of confidence, a little more self-esteem, and a very happy missus at home. To learn more about Enzyte, contact your doctor.
So it's a Cincinnati, Ohio-based company and product. And they had a huge call center in Forest Park, which is a smaller city north of Cincinnati. Well, there were a lot of lawsuits on Berkeley Pharmaceuticals because of their shady business practices, and they had to go out of business. They sold the business to Vianda, and Vianda just moved into the business where they had always been, in this giant call center. But because of the lawsuit, a lot of people thought that they went out of business completely, and they didn't know Enzyte was still a thing. So business dropped off tremendously. And when my wife and I got a job there in the call center, by that point, the business was just a shell of what it used to be. There wasn't really any employees. We worked third shift, so there was even fewer then on third shift. But even during the day, the call center itself was just like maybe a quarter full of people answering phones. The call center itself was this huge open room that probably sat 120 or more people in these cubicles. And you could, while sitting at your cubicle, you could look out over the top of the cubicles and see everybody around, see the entire room. But this was just one room inside the building. The building itself was much larger. There was a bunch of office space. There was a main lobby. But for the main call center area, there was an employee entrance that you had to badge in, and there was 2 sets of doors. You would come in through the main set with your badge, and then you would open another set to come in, and it just led down a long hallway that ran along one side of the call center. and there would be multiple entryways into the call center. There had no doors. It was just an open doorway, probably 3 or 4 of those every 20 feet or so. And it led right back to the break room. And along the other side of the hallway was a bunch of office spaces. I think our IT crew had a big office there. And as far as I know, there was actually a giant basement to the place too, but I never saw it. So the floor in the call center was raised, and everything sat on top of this raised floor. And underneath was where all the wires and cables went for all of the computers and the phones. So because it was raised, when you walked on it, you could hear like people walking around. And my wife and I, when we were working at third shift, sometimes we were the only ones there in this giant room. And we would hear the employee door open and shut. It was something that it just echoed throughout the call center. And we would both look around to see who came in, because nobody should have been coming in at that point. And nobody would be there. And we would just kind of chalk it up to, well, there's another ghostly employee coming to work. We would hear people walking on the floor all the time. It was very distinguishable from every other noise we would hear that would just be like buildings settling or whatever. There was also a white noise machine in the call center for obvious reasons. And I don't know if that helped like play a part in what we heard, but we would definitely hear like footsteps on the floor. Sometimes we would hear what sounded like somebody sitting down in one of the chairs. One time for sure, I heard that and looked around and saw the chair spinning in place, like somebody sat down and just spun around. Probably though, the creepiest thing that happened was one night when I went to the bathroom. The bathroom, I don't know about the ladies' room, but the men's room was super nice. It was much nicer than the entire rest of the building, and I'm not sure why that is, but it was really big as well. It had probably 5 stalls and 5 or 6 urinals all along one wall. And then on the other wall was the counter space. It was huge. There was like 5 sinks and a whole mirror that went across the wall in front of the sinks. And because we were the only ones there, of course I was the only one in the restroom, and I always went to the very back of the bathroom into the last stall to use the bathroom. So when I came out, I was standing at the sink washing my hands, and one of the other stall doors directly behind me, which I believe was the first or second stall, the door slammed shut, and it made me jump. I looked in the mirror, and I could see it bouncing back and then slowly closing. And that's the only time that ever happened to me. I don't know if that was the ventilation. I do believe the entire time I was in there, I heard like the vent blowing. So maybe that's what it was, but I had never experienced that before or since. And everybody I talked to about that said they had never experienced that either. And I've been in plenty of restrooms like that, like my current job. The stall door, when I exit the stall, it shuts on its own. And when I walk out of the stall and open the door all the way to do so, when it shuts, it hits pretty hard, but it doesn't hit like it was slammed shut. And it doesn't bounce back like that either. And I feel like if the door was set to shut that hard on its own, that it would do it all the time and not just once out of the blue. I don't know. That was a really strange place. So those are the 2 places I worked that I know for sure were haunted. If you have any haunted workplace stories yourself, leave them in the comments below. I appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in again this week. Have a good one.